Now, welcome everyone to the new Friday briefing. My name is James Miller, managing editor for The Interpreter. And these Friday briefings are designed to brief my Patreons, the people who support me, the people who subscribe to me, about the events that I'm following in the news. And the goal is, if we hit our first goal of $500, we will begin. We'll turn this into a podcast. We will invite at least one guest. You could probably guess who it is. And if we hit the $1,000 goal, we'll do two guests. Now, one of the things that is about to happen is there's going to be some changes on the Patreon. So the prices you see right now, we will be honored. But those prices are about to be cut off potentially and replaced by some new tiers, which basically means that if you get in now, you will be getting these rewards cheaper, which is what I wanted. When I set out to launch the Patreon, I actually had some funding, and now I don't. So we are actually pursuing a brand new, really exciting. So there's some really exciting things coming for The Interpreter, and for myself, and for some of these other projects that I'm working on that I think are about to come together. And I can't announce them yet, but we will definitely need your continued support and more support. So I haven't been pushing this too hard right now, but we're about to hit it hard. So on the agenda for today, the big news is very clearly about Donald Trump. Oh, no surprise, about Donald Trump and his ties to Russia. Now, last night, the Wall Street Journal published an article that said Mike Flynn is seeking immunity from Congress in order to inform, in order to basically spill the beans about what was going on with something. We don't know what, so we can infer. And what we're going to infer is that Mike Flynn has some information about Trump and his ties to Russia. There were two other really huge pieces of news to come out of yesterday. The first one was that the BBC has confirmed that a high-ranking Russian diplomat, I'm sorry, I don't have his name off on the tip of my tongue right now, not Kislyak, but he was in Washington until sometime during last summer, and he was pulled. And if you go to the Steele dossier, this infamous document that is unconfirmed, that talked about how Donald Trump had prostitutes doing all kinds of terrible things to him in Moscow, one of the key details in that document was that this Russian diplomat, was the key go-between between Russia and the Russian government and Donald Trump. Now, what we now know is that this detail, according to U.S. officials who talked to the BBC, has been confirmed. That they believe that this guy was the go-between, and that he was withdrawn back to Moscow because Moscow thought that the American press was onto him. What this means is that, first of all, this is like a key detail in this document that as of yet has been, we're still calling it unconfirmed, but pieces of it now have been confirmed. And this is a very important point, because what this means is that a central linchpin of this claim, maybe not the linchpin, but a big one, has now been confirmed. And it's been confirmed by the people who are investigating Donald Trump and Russia and Russia's involvement in all this. That suggests that large parts of this document are accurate. And it also suggests that there's criminal wrongdoing here. So that's a really serious allegation. Now, yesterday, the White House also announced that it was briefing top members of Congress in a classified setting on new developments in the Russia probe. We haven't seen them do this yet, so this is unprecedented for Trump to make such an announcement. So to me, this sounds like there's been a major development, probably in the investigation by the FBI. That means that we could be looking at criminal proceedings moving forward. I really think, I don't know this, I really think that there is a smoking gun or several that have been uncovered, and I think that Michael Flynn knows this, and that is why he is now proposing that he testify and spill the beans in order for congressional immunity. Flynn there's an amazing video circulating right now of when Flynn said something along the lines of, you don't get immunity unless you've done a crime. Well, Flynn is seeking immunity. So what does that tell you? Now, why? Why is, and this topic has come up a lot. I've been asked several questions about it, in fact, in the last 5 minutes. Why is Russia so focused on Donald Trump? Now, we also know that Russia's interest in Donald Trump winning goes back to the primaries. Okay, so it didn't start when he was running against Clinton. Now, I've written a lot about how Hillary Clinton's foreign policy agenda was to challenge Russia. It's always funny because Trump has now multiple times said, do you really believe that Hillary Clinton would have been tougher on Russia than I am? And the answer to that question is yes, absolutely. Hillary Clinton proposed, we knew at the time, even in 2012, when she was still Secretary of State, that Hillary Clinton proposed an attack on the Syrian government to remove Bashar al-Assad. Well, guess what? Bashar al-Assad is Russia's key ally. Hillary Clinton has been very tough on some things like Russian aggression in Ukraine and some other issues. So yes, I absolutely. And when you look at the things Donald Trump has said that are very soft on Russia, and when you look at what's going on in eastern Ukraine now, serious, heavy fighting has escalated since Donald Trump became president, actually since he won the election. So, and it continues to escalate, and there's some really worrying signs. So do I think, yes, is the answer. Beyond that, there are a few other things. Steve Bannon, who's, one of Trump's top advisors, he's talked about a lot about the desire to create anarchy. That, he basically hated the U.S. government enough that he wants to break it. Well, guess what? Putin has been trying to break the U.S. government for a very long time. So this is another sort of an area where Russia might be interested in Donald Trump. Donald Trump has been very disruptive, and frankly, not in any good ways at all. I don't think any historians, even staunchly conservatives, are going to think that Donald Trump has been an effective president. As of now, he has not been. He's been terrible at draining the swamp. The swamp is still there. It's getting swampier, in fact. Nothing's getting done. Congress hasn't passed anything that's part of his agenda. And everything is ground to a halt. And no one is focusing on issues like Syria or even ISIS, Russian aggression, this money laundering stuff that's going on. Nobody's focused on that. And one of the reasons why they're not focused on that is because the situation in Washington is a total mess. I think Vladimir Putin knew that was going to happen, and I think he was very interested in seeing that happen. the more distracted the United States is, and this has been a key tactic of the Russian government since 2007 at least, is that as the U.S. is distracted and as the U.S. public is fed up with, Iraq war and Afghanistan and all that stuff, there's more leverage for Russia to do whatever Russia wants to do. And this is the continuation of that. This is the perfect opportunity. What's backfired on Putin a lot, I think, is that you now have people on both sides of the aisle recognizing the Russian threat, and they may be very interested in responding to the Russian threat. But I don't think that's going to happen as long as Donald Trump is president. So there are overlaps so there's the chaos factor as one reason why Russia may have wanted Donald Trump. Another is clearly that there are overlaps in their policy. Trump has said things like he wants Russia to take control of the Syria situation, and he hinted at, now his administration has walked back the idea of dropping sanctions against Russia. Those are great things for Russia. It certainly means that even if sanctions are not dropped, there are probably not more sanctions on the way for Russia. So Russia can at least maintain that status quo and continue to push. Those are advantageous policies. So we have the chaos factor, the policy factor, and then the last factor might be these direct business connections, or at least indirect business connections. Look, Vladimir Putin, at one point in time, actually right away off the bat, proposed that Russia should join NATO and that Russia should consider moving towards the European Union. And actually, if you look early on in Putin's administration, he talked about the EU is a good thing and it's an opportunity and Russia should move towards that. He was less warm about NATO. He basically said that NATO was established to counter the Russian threat, which I think is fair. It was established after World War II at the height of the Cold War. It was there in part to counter the Russian threat. Its main goal was to make sure that that Central and Western Europe and the United States had an alliance and never decayed into that kind of war amongst themselves anymore. And it has upheld that mission. There have been no wars inside those territories. So good for NATO. NATO has worked perfectly. But Putin said, well, look, it's anti-Russian, but it doesn't need to be. And we have interest in moving towards it. And it's only more recently, in the last, say 2012 or so, maybe even a little before that, where Russia has been staunchly anti-NATO and staunchly anti-EU. And one of the reasons is because Russia cannot get into the EU as long as Russia continues its policy of what I would call shady oligarchism and kleptocracy. What this means is that Russia is designed, the economy there is designed, the government is designed to enrich certain individuals at the expense of the people. And all the money is hidden. It's all it's all under the table. It's these backroom deals between very wealthy individuals. And, well, guess what? That is the kind, when you read about Donald Trump's business transactions, those are the kinds of things Trump is interested in. Well, we don't know his tax returns. We don't know who he owes money to. We don't know where his investors are. We don't know why he sold a moldy mansion that got torn down right after he sold it for like $125 million. There are all these shady interactions that may or may not be illegal, are probably immoral and unethical, and I would say just not. They wouldn't be good PR if the information about these were to be released publicly. that is the world that Donald Trump operates in, and it's the world that Putin has built. He's worked to build this in the post-Cold War era. Putin's first job, and Putin's main job before he became the director of the FSB, which is the KGB, okay? His main job in that post-Cold War era was to figure out who should get the ownership of government property. So under communism, everything was government property. And when you move to capitalism, everything is, a lot of things are private ownership. Well, so somebody had to figure out who owns what. And Vladimir Putin's job was to do that for St. Petersburg. And as a result, he made a lot of people rich. And he did so sort of all under the table, these sorts of handshake deals, at some of which we know the details of, a lot of which we don't. And the more we learn about not just Donald Trump, the way Paul Manafort works, the way Michael Flynn works, the way Steve Bannon and Steve Miller work, they're these other guys. The list goes on and on. There's a huge list of Trump officials who this is how they work. There's these background deals with oil companies, with steel companies, with real estate agents, with the Russian mob, and deals get done. So that's the fourth reason. So to recap, Russia liked the chaos that Trump brought to the table. Russia liked the policies that Trump brought to the table. Russia likes the way Trump does business.